Hello, good evening and welcome. I am Gwen, Miss Malson, and in this very good opportunity, I would like to present the article that I have chosen, which titled "The Use of Criminal Records in Employment Decisions."
Been higher. It's close to 30%. There's a 66% chance that someone released from prison will be
We know ex-offenders are those people who have done any types of offenses in the past, and after they have fulfilled their punishment, they are now returned and back to the community. However, with the criminal records they have, making their lives a little bit difficult, as it is hard for them to apply for any jobs, especially when the employers are very concerned about their possible employees' criminal past. The question is that, does checking into others' criminal past is really necessary when employing people? And if it does, how about the rights of the ex-offenders to return and be treated as a normal citizen? Well, the article that I have chosen is pretty much about that. The article explains why the ex-offenders' rights need to be protected and examine the need for legal protection of ex-offenders by limiting the employees' access to information on criminal backgrounds of their possible employees. After analyzing the article, I have identified the target audience that the writers were trying to reach, the style and tone used in the writing, as well as the issues discussed in the article itself. Therefore, I would like to share each of my analysis, and by the end of the discussion, I will provide and present my conclusion. The article was written in order to reach the public and society, which I think is the targeted audience of this article, especially to those people who are doing businesses and thinking about or in the process of employing. It is like giving out ideas whether employing the ex-offenders might result a negative impact on their businesses or to the employees themselves. And moreover, it is also to destigmatize the stigma that have been living in society for a very long time about the ex-offenders. The style of writing used in this article is persuasive, whereby the writers were trying to convince their audience with their beliefs that they have presented through the article, and the writing itself contained the writer's opinions and biases as well as justification and reasons. Now, the tone used in the article. The tone used in the article is an ascetic tone, which I think really helps to show the writer's persistence and confidence on the points that were presented in the article, and at the same time helps to persuade the readers to believe and put themselves in the position of the writers. Now, let's move on to the issue discussed in the article. The writers have highlighted few points on why ex-offenders' employment rights need to be protected, which are the ex-offenders' rights itself, the need for legal protection, the impact on the society, criminal records as predictors of future performance, and lastly, the fairness of legal system. These points had been explained in the article in hope to make changes in the reader's perspective on the role of ex-offenders. So without further ado, let's get into each of the points, shall we? Firstly, the ex-offender's right. As we know, each of every one of us has our own rights, such as the right of how we need to be treated, our right to do this and that, and so much more. However, The writers argue that even though everyone has our own rights, these rights are relative and can be circumscribed, or in other words, restricted by the law when necessary, especially if the rights are in conflict. For example, those who are in prison will not be able to retain their liberty and rights, at least for a temporary of time. Their rights are curtailed in order to protect the rights, the property, and safety of the ordinary law-abiding citizens. However, once they have served the punishment, they deserve to have their rights again, in which they are able to return into the community where he or she are given the opportunity to live a normal life with the same legal status and rights as any other regular citizens. This means that they should no longer be seen as a criminal or an individual who made a crime, but as a normal society who are starting a new chapter of his or her life. There is a law called double jeopardy, which prevents or to protect the ex-offenders from being punished twice for the same crime. The punishment here does not only mean that it should come or decided by the jury, but in fact also apply to the group of people in the society. For instance, stigmatism and discrimination are another form of punishment imposed for the ex-offenders outside the prison. So being stigmatized and discriminate is equivalent with enduring additional punishment for the crime they have done, in which is contrasting with the principle of double jeopardy. On the different note, job applicant is generally not required to disclose their personal information that is not relevant to the job that is applied. Criminal status is just another piece of personal information, especially if that record involves a distant conviction that has little connection to the job. Decisions to use such information to exclude ex-offenders from being hired are unjustified extension of legal punishment. Another point on why ex-offenders' employment rights need to be protected is because the need for legal protection. Why do you think this need exists? Because one, many research found that employers do make frequent inquiries about their job applicants' criminal past. This indicates that most employers are concerned about their possible employees' criminal history. Inquiries into job applicants' criminal history will cause the ex-offenders with dilemma. For example, if they decide to voluntarily disclose their criminal records to the employer, it will decrease their chance of being hired. However, if they decided to make it the opposite or keep them as a secret, of course, the higher chance for them to get hired, but at the same time, it will also higher the risk of later being found out and dismissed for misinterpretation. Secondly, the effects of discrimination against the ex-offenders also support the notion that ex-offenders do need legal protection. The discrimination against ex-offenders refers to the fewer job opportunities and lower earnings. Such effects were greater for those who had served jail time, committed fraud, and breached trust obligations associated with the positions they had held at the time of their offense. Other researchers had also found that arrests and convictions reduce the prospect of getting a job, and that even when the ex-offenders are hired, they are likely to earn low wages in jobs with little security. This means that the discrimination they are facing is drawing a border between the ex-offenders and the other citizens. Moving on to the next point, which is the impact on the society. The need to protect the right of ex-offenders in employment does not only centering the ex-offenders themselves but also to the society. The writers highlighted that the consequences of excluding ex-offenders from job market are serious, not only for them but for the potential victims of crime as well. Employment discrimination against ex-offenders reduces their attachment to the labor force, therefore leaving them with no other options but to continue committing crime. Because for them, having a job does not only seen as a source of income. In fact, it is also gives an extra economic benefits such as social status and interpersonal contacts and psychologically rewarding activities which are important to the development and maintenance of social and mental well-being. With this, it can translate that those ex-offenders see employment or having a job as a key ingredient in going straight and gaining respectability. In other words, employment is their new starting point of life.
Better networks of support to help them reintegrate into society.
Other than that, ex-offenders that were denied employment opportunities are more likely to feel depressed and become entrapped in a vicious cycle of self-defeating behaviors which may involve re-engaging in illegitimate activities. That is why the article itself has highlighted that the more frequent incidents and longer duration of unemployment, the higher the rates of recidivism and longer criminal career. Recidivism refers to the tendency of a convicted criminal to reoffend. They have also included the perspective of public policy, which states that reintegrating ex-offenders into society has other benefits such as helps to reduce the law enforcement costs of police, courts and prisons, and the social welfare costs of income support. Reintegrated ex-offenders not only cease to be major drain on public resources, they also become productive contributors to the community and to the economy. The reintegration also promises to alleviate labor shortages in low unemployment regions, expanding potential output and reducing inflationary pressures. Next, we will be looking at the point which discuss about criminal records as predictors of future job performance. The writer stated that some employers may argue that selection based on criminal record is justified by the possibility that those who have committed wrongs in the past are likely to do so again. However, the writers did questions about the credibility of the prior conviction as an indicator of future threat to others' personal safety and private property. For example, in the United States, over 15 million arrests were made in the year of 2001, including drug abuse, which is the most common offense, contributing to more than 1.5 million arrests. But still, no strong evidence that shows drug possession directly threatens others' safety or property. The article also wrote about the report from the Department of Justice, which shows that many of other offenses in 2001 were for petty crimes. Again, it is questionable to assume that offenders with such a minor conviction pose a significant threat to potential employers, their employees, as well as their customers. Even for more serious offenses, convicted felons often reoffer over the short term, especially during their adolescence years, but most eventually rehabilitate as they get older and so pose little threat to people or their property. The writer cited a research that found deviant attitudes reach a peak age at about 17.7 years of age and decline thereafter, which are likely due to maturation, physical burnout, and changes in life circumstances during adulthood. Therefore, the point was concluded that the past convictions is not a good indicator of future performance on the job, at least for the more mature individuals. A selection method based on past criminal record is at best lacking validity and at worst outright discriminatory and exclusionary. Simply put, just because they have criminal record in the past does not mean that it can be used to unrecognize their right to be employed. Last but not least, the reason why ex-offenders' employment rights need to be protected is because the fairness of legal system. The writers say that the law are not the absolute codes of moral conduct. It can be varied across time and space, reflecting ever-changing differences in moral beliefs of lawmakers and their backers. For instance, if boundaries of socially accepted behavior shift over time, does it make sense to permanently stigmatize all ex-offenders with criminal labels? The writers also added that administration of the criminal justice system is also far from perfect. Not everyone gets a fair trial or an appropriate punishment. Even though criminal system relies on proof of guilt beyond reasonable doubt, wrongful convictions still occur from time to time. Moreover, the systematic bias in legislative enactment and enforcement further adds to the need to protect ex-offenders, many of whom may be victims of incompetence or prejudice. The writers had provided an example in which shows that the fairness of the justice system towards the minority youths are concerning. Since the conviction bias against minorities evidently exists, any differential treatment based on criminal background could accentuate the unfair discrimination minority groups already suffer in the labor market. By the end of the elaboration, the writers concluded that not all laws are fair and fairly enforced, and so caution must be exercised in relying a criminal record to justify differential treatment in hiring. In conclusion, the writers believe that the ex-offenders' employment rights need to be protected, which means that the rights of the ex-offenders need to be recognized in order to accept their return into the community. The writers had provided 5 points about why the rights need to be protected, which are the ex-offender's rights, the need for legal protection, the impact on the society, criminal records as predictors of future job performance, and lastly, the fairness of legal system. The writers point out that the ex-offenders do have their rights to return into the community and live as a normal people after receiving the punishment that had been given to them, as well as to be treated as a normal citizen without being stigmatized and discriminated due to their criminal records in the past. Moreover, personal information should not be asked in any job application, especially when it has little connection and relevance to the job itself, in order to avoid these ex-offenders being excluded from being hired. Besides, the rights need to be protected in order to provide the ex-offenders with a legal protection. This is because they are more likely to be discriminated in, which results to lower chance of getting employed or to work permanently and to obtain the earning and security they deserve. Simply put, they need to have this legal protection to lead a normal life without relying to any association. Another reason of why the ex-offenders' employment rights need to be protected is because the impact that it will bring to the society. Discriminating the ex-offenders from getting employed means that it will leave them with no other choice but to reoffend other crime, which is very concerning to both of the ex-offenders' positive development and the society as well. The ex-offenders need to be hired in order for them to gain respect from others as well as to maintain their social and mental well-being. Furthermore, the writers explain that the criminal records are not the best way to predict the future job performances and should not be the reason why the ex-offenders should be excluded from being hired as an employee. Finally, the last point, which is talking about the fairness of the legal system. The writers point out that the law sometimes cannot be relied on to judge the ex-offender's credibility to be employed, as at some point the laws are sometimes at fault and may fail to give the justice that the convicted deserves, which means the ex-offenders cannot be fully judged by the punishment that had been sentenced to them. Now we have come to the very end of my presentation. I would like to thank everyone for listening attentively to my presentation just now. So I would like to bid a goodbye and good night to everyone. Thank you.